So it's often funny when I tell people this, that in my youth, my formal introduction to occultism was probably two of the most controversial books in their fields, respectively. On the one hand, there was Douglas Monroe's 21 Lessons of Merlyn, a study in Druid magic and lore. On the other, Simon's Necronomicon. I was very young, and since then I've worn out several copies of each. The Simon Necronomicon was recently released again in hardcover, distributed simultaneously by both Jim Wasserman in its numbered leathered edition and the Weiser Ibis edition in cloth. It's like this. Unfortunately, 21 Lessons of Merlyn has only seen a release in hardcover for its German audience. At this juncture, it's no great secret that I used to write as Merlyn Stone in my teenage years at the end of the last millennium. During this time, the Simon Necronomicon was one of the few practical pieces of Mesopotamian mysticism I had at my disposal. And yet at the same time, Simon had yet to reappear on the scene with Dead Names and Gates of the Necronomicon, which was curious to me because a good third of the book, Dead Names, was devoted to responding to critiques made in Necronomicon Files, the book by Daniel Harms and John Wisdom Gonce III. During their research for this work, Daniel Harms and John Wisdom Gonce basically used the internet to do a series of interviews with some people obviously they couldn't reach by mail or otherwise, fell upon me as a result of discovering both my Sorcerer's Handbook and Necronomicon Rituals, which were distributed by Azure Green or Abyss Distribution under the authorship of Merlyn Stone. While the attitude taken towards my work was far from friendly, Daniel Harms was at least fair in his critique of the Necronomicon joke that we were playing at the time, which I have since taken much more serious in my current edition of the Necronomicon. However, at the time, what they should have understood as a simple joke was taken far more serious than it should have been. John Gonce, on the other hand, provided a drunkenly candid, obnoxious ridicule of the Sorcerer's Handbook, a work I had written and self-published in the underground at the age of 16. While he claims that the resulting material makes him glad that he wished he didn't get anything, or glad he didn't get anything published at that age, the apparent publicity that I was receiving in the 90s at the time under that guise was clearly a subject of jealousy on his part, which came through in his writing. And it's evident to anyone that I have shown the literature of theirs too. I've also thought, being a student of logic, that it is quite peculiar his harshness towards folks like myself and Simon, when without us there would have been nothing for them to file in their very cliché presentation. It should be understood that there is nothing functionally practical about the $30 Necronomicon Files, as it succeeds in being merely a harsh review of any and all conceptualizations to ever use the word Necronomicon. Now, only 50 of copies of the original Merlyn Stone Necronomicon were released to the public in 1999, somehow one of them ending up on the desk of Daniel Harms. In his review of my teen work, Harms accepted my precocious debut into the mainstream New Age at face value. The small green-covered paperback was issued in '99 as a compendium of ceremonial magic, with no intention of being a literal replacement of the Babylonian Necronomicon that folks had come to be more familiar with from the Simon edition. The book included watchtower rituals, conjurations, and things adapted from a cornucopia of grimoires that, at the time, the Elven Fellowship Circle of Magic had been exploring. Nearly all of the Merlyn Stone books were originally written first and foremost for internal purposes, much like the more recent Joshua Free books have been for Mardukite Ministries. It starts internally for our own uses, and then if it takes off, cool. It is curious that one of the primary hang-ups by both Harms and Gonce is the name used for our publishing press at the time. Because we were being distributed under various editions and releases, and also were changing from time to time to meet the needs of subsidiary works released under a banner of Sacred Grove Press, a name that when we were doing the Draconis Celtic Lodge of Druids in 1995, and then Crystal Dawn Press for the Elven Fellowship Circle of Magic in 98, and then finally Purple Earth Press in 2000. The authors of the Necronomicon Files found this to be very confusing, as if the name of the publishing company had any direct relationship on the materials that were otherwise being presented. Some of this was actually done to maintain our own anonymity, as was my choice in using a pseudonym at the time. As I had admitted freely to Daniel Harms in our interview, the Merlyn Stone Necronomicon served as an outlet to put forth grimoire-like materials that had no real place in the prior publications we were creating, which were training materials, not specifically intended to be used as standalone Conjuration Black Book. Harms had better accepted this explanation for the existence of a book, because he went on to describe it as a phenomenon that was likely to grow in the years to come. The writing of Necronomicons, and I'm quoting him here, not for money or fame, but out of an occultist desire to make his or her own version of the book tangible. Now, in a separate part of the Necronomicon Files, Gonce took up the task of reviewing the Sorcerer's Handbook by Merlyn Stone, which had a chapter dedicated to the Simononian Necronomicon. The first part of his review is a ridicule of my choice in using the name Merlyn Stone. His next hang-up is the use of the name Crystal Dawn in the publishing. And it becomes clear to me because he goes on to explain that Crystal Dawn was the name of some 1980s pornographic actress, which was totally news to me. Of course, the intent behind the name Crystal Dawn, as any occultist would probably understand, had a relationship with the idea of the Golden Dawn. So it seems clear to me that Gonce's, pornographic trivia, his aptitude in pornographic trivia is obviously higher than his occultism. As even Simon questions in Dead Names, why does Gonce, for example, feel he's qualified to judge and even dismiss the practices of other occultists? While many of you have enjoyed Marduk and the Anunnaki, the quarterly publication of our ministry in PDF form, we are pleased to announce that now, for the first time, you can actually acquire this even as a non-member in printed form from our eBay site. Our Chamberlains are standing by to take your orders.